This is the Bahamas. Welcome to Opentiera. Join us in our exploration of the Bahamas. From stunning beaches to vibrant cultural traditions, join us on a journey through this breathtaking island nation. We'll delve into its diverse geography, uncover its fascinating history, discover the vibrant music and dance, savor its unique cuisine, and more. Get ready to immerse yourself in the beauty and richness of the Bahamas. The Bahamas is an archipelago made up of over 700 islands and more than 2,000 cays. The islands have a total land area of about 5,300 square miles, though only between 30 to 40 of the islands are actually inhabited. The islands themselves are rather flat, with the highest point only rising 206 feet above sea level. The islands can be grouped into several major areas, such as the Northwest Bahamas, the Berry Islands, the Biminis, Andros, and the Exumas. Each area has its own unique landscape and ecosystem to explore. Nassau, located on the island of New Providence, is the capital and largest city in the Bahamas. It is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the islands and is known for its large cruise ship port, historical colonial buildings, and sites like Paradise Island. Freeport, located on Grand Bahama Island, is the second largest city in the Bahamas. It has undergone rapid development in recent decades with hotels, shops, and tourist facilities. It offers travelers beaches, nature preserves, and ocean activities. The northern Bahamas experience a tropical wet and dry climate, while the southern islands have a tropical savanna climate. The weather is generally warm, sunny, and temperate, making it an appealing place to visit year-round. The Bahamas is renowned as an island paradise in the Atlantic, but these stunning islands also have a long and fascinating history. The Bahamas have been influenced by a diverse range of cultures, empires, and events over the centuries. The original inhabitants of the Bahamas were the Lucayans, a branch of the Taino people, who likely settled the islands from Hispaniola and Cuba. Christopher Columbus made first contact in 1492, arriving on the island of San Salvador and claiming it for the Spanish crown. Over the next century, the islands were largely depopulated as Lucayan inhabitants were taken back to Hispaniola for forced labor. British rule officially began in the mid-1600s, establishing the foundations of the modern Bahamian nation. British loyalists and their slaves arrived in the late 1700s, expanding plantations, importing African slaves, and building Nassau into a center of slave trading by the 18th century. Slavery was abolished in 1834, and the slave trade itself was banned in the early 1860s. Still part of the British Empire, the Bahamas prospered in the late 1800s from maritime industries, salt production, and phosphate mining. Tourism emerged as another major economic driver. The Bahamas gained full independence on July 10, 1973, establishing a parliamentary democracy. With around 400,000 residents across its islands, the Bahamas has a relatively small population. However, the islands have a rich blend of African and European backgrounds integrated over generations. An estimated 85 to 90% of Bahamians identify as being primarily of African descent. The remainder have mixed African and European ancestry. Most Bahamians practice Christianity, which arrived in the colonial period. Baptist denominations form the largest religious group. Other major Christian denominations include Anglican and Roman Catholic branches. While English is the official language used in schools and governance, most locals grow up communicating in an English African Creole language. This Bahamian dialect, also called Bahamian Creole, uses imported African grammatical structures with English vocabulary. The Bahamas is a parliamentary democracy within the Commonwealth of Nations. gaining full political independence from the UK in 1973. The British monarch remains the ceremonial head of state, represented by a Bahamian Governor-General. Executive power lies with the Prime Minister as head of government. The Prime Minister is usually the leader of the political party, holding the majority of seats in Parliament. Parliament consists of two chambers, the elected House of Assembly and the appointed Senate. The House of Assembly has 39 members directly elected by Bahamians. The Senate has 16 members appointed by the Governor-General based on the Prime Minister's recommendations. There are two major political parties, the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement. Contemporary political debates often center on reducing crime and poverty, generating jobs, and further diversifying an economy heavily focused on tourism. Allegations of government corruption and patronage have been ongoing criticisms. The two dominant parties have traded control in recent electoral cycles. The Bahamas has a GDP of about $12 billion annually. While small on the global stage, it ranks amongst the highest in GDP per capita in the Americas. However, critics argue this wealth distribution remains highly unequal, with over 10% still living in poverty. Tourism generates over 80% of the total GDP and employs roughly half the working population, either directly or indirectly. From mega resorts to boarding a private yacht, visitors inject around $5.5 billion annually through lodging, dining, transport, entertainment, and shopping. After tourism, financial services are the second pillar of the economy at around 15% of GDP. The country is a banking and wealth management hub. Relaxed tax laws, strict privacy protection, and offshore investment structures lure global assets. The government continues strengthening laws to shed past reputations of money laundering while still welcoming legitimate international investment. The Bahamas is renowned for its picturesque beaches, but the islands also produce vibrant music and dance, reflecting a fusion of African and European influences. Rhythmic drum beats, colorful Junkanoo costumes, and folk melodies showcase the diversity of Bahamian cultural roots. The Goombay style, one of the earliest forms of Bahamian folk music, stems from an African drumbeat combined with European harmonies and instrumentation. Goombay compositions helped launch the careers of seminal Bahamian musicians like Blind Blake. Blending both African and European musical qualities, the Rake and scrape tradition originated on Cat Island, incorporating instruments like the accordion, saw, and goatskin drum. Often used to accompany dances or folk theatre, its upbeat tempos share the energy of the Bahamian people. No musical tradition better represents Bahamian identity than Junkanoo. Based on West African festivals but transformed by Bahamian slaves, these costumed parades featuring cowbells, horns, whistles, and goatskin drums take over Nassau's streets on Boxing Day and New Year's. Dancers rhythmically rush along to pulsating beats in colorful costumes as groups compete for prize money and bragging rights in this vibrant showcase of national culture. Bahamian culinary traditions beautifully blend West African, British, and Caribbean influences, reflecting the archipelago's storied history as a melting pot society. The use of fresh seafood and local produce creates a unique fusion cuisine not found elsewhere in the region. No ingredient represents the country more distinctly than conch. This giant sea snail with tasty meat shows up in the national dish of conch chowder, a rich, peppery pink stew brimming with vegetables and tender conch. Salads, fritters, and croquettes also transform this staple into Bahamian favorites. The island's vibrant fishing industry supplies kitchens with grouper, snapper, and spiny lobster that star in various ceviches, mac and cheese preparations, and more. On weekends, locals flock to corner stores and street vendors selling sous, a beloved stew of boiled sheep, parts like trotters and intestines, doused in a tangy lime sauce. Tropical fruits also find their way into desserts, like the ubiquitous guava duff. Guava fruit baked into a bread pudding-type cake, often topped with a sweet rum glaze. From sous to seafood, duff to conch, the fusion of flavors and ingredients spotlights the uniqueness of Bahamian foodways, drawing from an eclectic mix of cultural traditions, tied together by fresh seafood and local produce from the surrounding islands. If you enjoyed this video on the Bahamas, you'll love this next one.